Joined now by Michael McCaul. He's the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, represents Texas's 10th district in Congress. Great to have you with us. We see the enthusiasm there, the emphasis with the exclamation mark on building that wall from the President of the United States. Do you share his enthusiasm, Congressman?
Well, we've been trying to get this border secure, well, for the 12 years I've been in the Congress. I think, finally have the political will to do this. I think the question is, what is the wall going to look like, and how is it going to be paid for? This executive order, as I understand it, basically calls upon the Congress to both authorize and fund the implementation of the wall. I've had discussions with the current Secretary of Homeland Security, General Kelly. I think it's going to involve many things. In addition to a brick-and-mortar wall, it would include fencing, I think a lot of technology, aviation assets, and the light to achieve that 100% visibility that you need from the sky to see what's happening on the ground. So I think, in a way, the term wall is a bit symbolic, but the wall does stand for securing and getting operational control of that border, which was a big campaign promise and pledge that the President made, and I actually advised him on it and agree with him.
Now, hold on a second here. All along the campaign, the President-elect, then the candidate campaigning, saying Mexico was going to pay for this thing. What's changed here, and how do you convince taxpayers this is going to be something more than just a very expensive symbol on the southern border?
That's a great question. I think what will happen is we will have an emergency supplemental bill that we call it in the Congress, with emergency funding to pay for the beginning of this security measure. And then I think you'd be looking at how's that going to be paid for down the road. And I think there are some creative ideas that I've been coming up with, and others in the Congress, where the taxpayer makes the initial down payment, but then eventually the security measures paid for by things like increasing putting a border security fee on visa applications from Mexico and American countries that are the biggest offenders of illegal immigration, to things like a border security fee crossing the border, and also finally looking at remittances going from the United States into these countries, a border security fee attached to that.
I want to get a sense from you of the quality of the conversation between the Congress and your committee and the new White House. It sounds as though you've been coming up with the plan. The President has been talking about this. He announced this on Twitter last night. There's going to be this speech today at the Department of Homeland Security. Are both sides talking about it? Is there congruity there between the Congress and the White House?
Well, that's a very good question. I think this President, he's CEO. He wants to move at lightning speed and be very decisive. He is going to have to work with the Congress, whether he likes that or not. And the fact is, he is moving rather quickly. We are getting a lot of this information in real time. I'm in a more unique position, David, having been an advisor to the campaign on the national security team. This is nothing new to me. In fact, a lot of these ideas, and he'll be rolling out ideas on this vetting process with visa security on Thursday. I've been, in a fortunate position to be more in the inside of the Trump team to advise him on these issues. So a lot of what I've been advising and talking to him about, I'm now seeing playing out in the executive orders.
You know, I was looking up the Census Bureau website, the demographics of your district, of the 10th district in Texas. More than a third of the population there in Austin and Houston, Hispanic or Latino. What are those constituents telling you about the rhetoric about immigration, about this conversation, about building a wall?
Well, I think, Texas in general, because it is a border state, they want that security piece done. They want security between the sovereign nations. On the other hand, they also recognize the partnership as a trading partner and other ways that Mexico is really a neighbor to the south, not an enemy to the south. And so I don't think, at least speaking for Texans, not looking at Mexico as an enemy, but rather a partner. But this security piece has to be done to keep out both illegal drug traffickers, drug cartel members, and potential terrorists. I think there's a pretty strong consensus that needs to be done.
Let me ask you about Chicago. We're dealing with all this in real time. As you say, last night, President Trump tweeting, if Chicago doesn't fix the horrible carnage going on, 228 shootings in 2017 with 42 killings, up 24% from 2016, I will send in the feds. Can you give us some indication there of who the feds are and if that's something that your committee would oversee?
Well, yeah, to the extent it involves Homeland Security Department, I think some of that's rhetoric to say, stop the violence. And, ironically, Chicago is one of the strongest gun control cities, and yet it's one of the most violent cities in terms of gun violence. And so we need to look at what is happening in Chicago and what we can do to stop that violence and keep guns out of the hands of these criminals and mental illness cases that we see so much of the carnage. Now, what he means by the feds, I'm not sure. The feds could be the FBI. The feds could be the United States military. There are restrictions under the Constitution in terms of how much you can use the military. Certainly the National Guard can be deployed in another capacity in the event of an emergency.
Let me talk a little bit about cybersecurity here with you. After allegations emerged that Russians were involved in the U.S. presidential election, had been meddling with the election, you called for congressional investigations. You were kind of doing that. Since you made that call, have you made any headway getting other colleagues to join you? And do you think we're going to see some sort of congressional investigation on the House side?
Well, I think there has been headway in terms of the Senate Intelligence Committee now has, Chairman Burr and Mark Warner, the ranking member, now announced that they will be officially investigating this and the dossier as well. And so I think, look, regardless of political party, when you have a foreign adversary like Russia tampering with our elections and our democracy, in my sense, to me, that warrants a more thorough investigation. I know the intelligence community and the FBI are further investigating the links that took place and the influence that Mr. Putin may have had. I think it's a dangerous, it's very dangerous to look at. They've done it in the past through spies and that sort of thing, but now to use the power of the cyber capacity to influence is a whole new dimension that I think we need to be taking a look at. I think my committee, with oversight over cybersecurity, will certainly be looking at this issue.
Given your closeness to the campaign as an advisor, has there been any pressure, direct or indirect, on you not to pursue an investigation into this?
None at all. None at all. In fact, very strong support to seek the truth. I think I got briefed on this, both classified and the non-classified. I advised the Obama administration that they should call Russia out for what they're doing. There need to be consequences to that. And I think I've advised the current administration the same. And I think Mr. Trump, after he got the right briefings on the intelligence side, has now recognized the role that Russia played.
Let me close here just with a question about priorities, jumping off of that conversation about cybersecurity and the election. What's the broader takeaway here as you look at the priorities for the DHS going forward with regard to cybersecurity in the wake of what's happened there with the election? What's going to change here in 2017?
Well, I think it's going to continue to be a growing threat to the United States, both theft of intellectual property, espionage. We saw China steal 20 million security clearances, and then the Russian influence in the elections. Significantly, Jay Johnson, former secretary, designated the election system as a critical infrastructure. DHS has a mission of protecting all 16, now 17 critical infrastructures, that being, energy, water, electricity, all that now to the election system. So I think what my plans are, in addition to the cyber bill I passed last Congress, is to galvanize it under one agency called the Cyber and Infrastructure Protection Agency within the department.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much.